Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we travel along singing a song side by side. Oh, we don't know what's coming tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we travel the road, sharing the load side by side. Through all kinds of weather, what if the sky should fall? Just as long as we're together, it doesn't matter at all. When they've all had their quarrels and parted, we'll be the same as we started, just traveling along, singing a song side by side. Well, hello everybody. I'm Domingo, and this is my piano. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I missed you, and thank you for indulging my 2 weeks that I took off. I took a nice little Netflix vacation and enjoyed all the streaming services and all that they had to offer. I got depressed with Ozark, I laughed my socks off with Schitt's Creek, and everything in between, including revisiting the Mythbusters. The Mythbusters got me through high school. Anyway, I actually learned the music for today's show about 2 weeks ago. I'd just been lazy and didn't really get around to filming it until now. Hopefully we'll get back into a weekly schedule, and I look forward to that. Anyway, I still need a haircut. I'm still in good health, and my parents as well. Knock on wood, we're doing good here, and I hope that you're doing well, too. So, anyway, what's new this week? Well, the week that I was going about learning everything, it was Cinco de Mayo. So I was hoping to get some sort of a Mexican-themed show, but that's kind of hard to do with 1920s music because the best you can do to try to get a Latinx-themed show, Mexico-themed show, especially around such a culturally appropriative holiday as Cinco de Mayo, the best you can kind of do is something like Hot Tamale Molly, which is our first song from 1925, written by Herman Ruby, Gilbert Wells, and Bud Cooper. Of course, it has nothing to do with hot tamales or Mexican culture, except for the fact that hot tamales are hot, and this Molly character is just as hot as the hot tamales. So anyway, let's talk about the songwriters. Herman Ruby. His biggest hits were My Sunny Tennessee and My Honey's Lovin' Arms. He didn't write many songs in the later years of the 1920s and the early 1930s because he was too busy working for the Warner Brothers Vitaphone Studios, heading up their short subjects department. And you'll remember back in the ukulele episode, I mentioned that that was the movie studio that was recording all the early sound films of vaudeville performers. So while he was busy doing all that, he didn't really have much time to write songs, so I guess he left the songwriting racket. Gilbert Wells and Bud Cooper, on the other hand, they weren't so lucky. They weren't particularly prolific songwriters either, though they did collaborate with each other to write Red Hot Mama, Sadie Green, The Vamp of New Orleans, and Overheated Mama. They broke their theme about vamps and hot women with Fabricatin' Phil. Anybody with a copy of Fabricatin' Phil, let me know. Sheet music or record otherwise. I know there was a fellow named James Barton who recorded the song on OK, but the only evidence I have that that record existed is the fact that there's a copy of the label in the U.S. Copyright Office. So anybody with Fabricatin' Phil, sheet music or record, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. But in the meantime, let's take a look at Hot Tamale Molly. I know a girlie named Molly, the sweetest baby in town, nicknamed Hot Tamale. Tamale by all the boys around. Among the up-to-date vampires, this baby's causing a stir. Those red-hot mamas and the other charmers have taken lessons from her. They call her Hot Tamale Molly, just another vampin' fool. Hot Tamale Molly, she's a gal that can't keep cool. Is she hot? Tell you what, most everybody knows. When they kiss, after this, he'll have to wear asbestos clothes. Hot Tamale Molly, she's a gal with lots of charm. If you want her address, why, just ring in the fire alarm. When she kisses you, I'll make a bet it's just another case of firemen. Spread your net on the porch. She's a torch, she's that hot tamale of mine. There's one more thing about Molly that I would like you to know. She went to a party and met a boy named Joe. He wore a celluloid collar. They called each other pet names. And now just listen, when they started kissing, his collar burst into flames because she's Hot Tamale Molly, just another vampin' fool. Hot Tamale Molly, she's a gal that can't keep cool. She's a bird, and I heard she kissed a chap one day. Was it hot? Tell you what, it made his gold teeth melt away. Hot Tamale Molly, she's a diamond in the rough. Hasn't got much polish, but she shines when she's doing her stuff. Like a crossword puzzle, I've been told she's just a three-letter word, and I don't mean cold. On a porch, she's a torch, she's that hot tamale. Hot tamale of mine. Hot Tamale Molly. There you have it, friends. Very good. Now, it may disappoint some of you to know that our next sheet music selection isn't directly from my collection tonight, but it is a piece of sheet music that I do have somewhere. I just couldn't find it on such short notice. It's called Mexicali Rose, and I was able to find a copy on the internet because it is in the public domain, because it was written in 1923. But it wasn't a hit until 1939 when Gene Autry made a movie called Mexicali Rose, which used the song and made it a hit for Autry. Of course, it's quite possible that Bing Crosby's 1938 record of Mexicali Rose brought the tune back into popular attention and perhaps was the catalyst for the 1939 movie starring Gene Autry. The music was by a fellow named Jack Tenney, who, strap in because this dude was a character. At the time that he wrote the song, he was putting himself through law school by leading some miscellaneous and never-famous bands, as well as writing some music. Besides, on the banks of the Old Merced, Mexicali Rose was his only real hit and only song that's kind of known today. He didn't really have time to write many songs because he had quite a successful career in law and eventually became a California state senator. In 1941, he saw an ad that Walt Disney placed in Variety suggesting that communist agitation was the reason for the cartoonist and animator's strike. I looked this up, and hopefully it should be appearing above my shoulder. Walt Disney did indeed place that ad, and believe me, I'm not trying to call to mind Walt Disney's integrity. I know that some people get very sensitive about that. I admire Walt Disney just as much as anybody else, but it's important that we take into mind our heroes' shortcomings as well as their strengths, so that we can learn from them. That's why we study history. Anyway, enough about Walt Disney, and back to Jack Tenney. So he sees this ad that says that the communists caused the Disney animators strike, and that inspires him to form the California Senate Fact-Finding Subcommittee on Un-American Activities. What a mouthful. That's why it probably became colloquially known simply as the Tenney Committee, and it was effectively known as the West Coast arm of that great era in American history, McCarthyism, which is where we accused public officials and people in the entertainment industry, and just about anybody who we wanted to accuse, of being members of the Communist Party. For more information about McCarthyism, I strongly suggest the 1962 film The Manchurian Candidate, starring Frank Sinatra in a dramatic role and Angela Lansbury in an equally dramatic role. But where were we? We strayed pretty far away. Oh, yes, Jack Tenney. So, starting in 1952, Jack Tenney, who was trying to find communists in the American entertainment industry, was assisted and backed in all his campaigning for state senate by the America First Party, which was quite anti-Semitic and more or less ended his political career in 1954. Upon his defeat, the New York Times reported that McCarthyism was coming to an end, but that didn't stop Tenney from writing Anti-Gentile Activity in America and Zionist Network, both of which were flagrantly anti-Semitic. I'm not going to be demonstrating and playing this song because of him. Helen Stone wrote the lyrics. Not much is known about her at all. There might be a few obscure tunes out there with her name on them, but I don't know them. Now, here's the fellow who's truly interesting. The Spanish translation, which is in this little tiny subtext up here, is by a fellow named Manuel Sanchez de Lara. I found a few interesting tidbits out about him. In 1922, he was the chorus director for a Hollywood Bowl production of Carmen, which featured many Latinx performers. That's very forward-thinking for that time, and what's even neater is De Lara had a summer opera company which produced grand opera featuring many Latinxes in leading roles. He was well known enough that in 1922, the July 15th edition of the Pacific Coast Review featured an ad for Knabe pianos listing Manuel Sanchez de Lara as the noted operatic singer and instructor, and of course a proud owner of a Knabe piano in his studio. I should have a picture of that ad above my shoulder. It's also the only photograph I could find of him. Anyway, he didn't become a citizen until 1929. Before that, he was a citizen of Mexico. And I know that he became a U.S. citizen in 1929 because I was actually able to find his declaration of intention online. And I'm pretty much 99% sure that this is him because the dates line up, and it also lists his occupation as a teacher of music. So he tried to become a citizen at the age of 62. He's listed as having a dark complexion, height of 5 feet 11 inches, 152 pounds, gray hair, brown eyes, and no other distinctive marks. Mentions that his wife's name was Vivian, and I looked it up. Vivian was actually in a couple of the operas that he produced, and she was born in Madison Station, Mississippi. And on this, the 11th day of January, 1929, he signed this little paper requesting to become a citizen. This little piece of paper also denotes that he was not an anarchist, and not a polygamist, nor a believer in the practice of polygamy, and it is his intention in good faith to become a citizen of the United States of America and to permanently reside therein. Anyway, he was a very neat fellow, and he's the gentleman behind the Spanish translation for the song that I'm about to sing. So let's put aside our thoughts about crazy old Jack Tenney and think about Manuel Sanchez de Lara as we sing Mexicali Rose. Here we go. Well, I'll be singing it. You won't be singing it. Be nice if you guys sang a song for once. Maybe we'll do that by Zoom somehow, some kind of a sing-along. That could be great or terrifying. Mexicali Rose, I'm leaving. Don't feel blue. Mexicali Rose, stop grieving. I love you. When the dove of love is winging through the blue, all the castles you've been building will come true. Mexicali Rose, stop crying. I'll come back to you some sunny day. Every night you know that I'll be pining, every hour a year while I'm away. Dry those big brown eyes and smile, dear. Banish all those tears and please don't sigh. Kiss me once again and hold me. Mexicali Rose, goodbye. Mexicali Rosa, no llores, piensa que muy pronto volveré y que siempre triste sin consuelo, cada noche y día yo pasaré. Seca tus hermosos ojos, deja de llorar y suspirar, bésame otra vez y estrechame, Mexicali Rosa, adiós. Mexicali Rosa. 2 songs in a row in the key of C, and I think that is the first waltz I played for you, and also the first song that ever had any influence from an honest-to-God Latinx person in the 1920s. Mexicali Rosa. Anyway, let's take a look at our next song here. It's another photocopy, but that's because it's very rare, and this photocopy was given to me by Tex Wyndham, who basically wrote the book on the history of Dixieland jazz. And indeed, he did. He wrote a book on the history of Dixieland jazz. And actually, if you look up the Syncopated Times and search Tex Wyndham, you'll actually find that they've digitized this book, and you can read it in several different articles. And this song is from 1926, and it's called Here Comes the Hot Tamale Man. And it's a photocopy because it was never published in a popular music edition. You could only get this if you bought the band arrangement. And it was by Charlie Harrison and Fred Rose. Now, Charlie Harrison was mostly a recording artist. He was particularly known for recording ballads, and his biggest hits were Peg of My Heart and I'm Always Chasing Rainbows. Those were in the 19-teens, actually, so it's obvious that in the 1920s he was still trying to make a buck, so he was helping out Fred Rose. Now, Fred Rose was the heavy hitter here, being an accomplished songwriter of the 1920s, responsible for Deed I Do, Flamin' Mamin', Deep Henderson, and Red Hot Henry Brown. But beyond his 1920s composition, he's best remembered for his country western songwriting, and his name resides in the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. I don't have all the time to list everything that he wrote, but many remembered Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, Home in San Antone, I Hang My Head and Cry, Take These Chains from My Heart, and my favorite, Roly Poly. However, here is my favorite song by Fred Rose from the 1920s, and it's called Here Comes the Hot Tamale Man. I'm going to go ahead and sing the original chorus, which isn't necessarily the nicest thing that was ever written, but in response, I've written my own chorus that gives my own personal take on how I feel things are going. So here we go with Here Comes the Hot Tamale Man from 1926. Just hear those brown folks screaming, they see that bucket steaming, here comes the hot tamale man. They know just what he's selling, 'cause he comes down Main Street yelling, here comes the hot tamale man. Watch him Charleston down the line, strutting I've got red hot. Come on boys, you're just in time for red hot. That's what brown folks get out their money. He needs shoesies for his honey. Here comes the hot tamale man. Just see those hipsters flocking to the taco truck they're walking. What happened to the hot tamale man? They found his papers lacking. Uncle Sam, he sent him packing. Too bad for hot tamale man. A hipster startup took his place, selling food in the park. The neighborhood is changing fast, the rent was cheap, now it's steep. Ellis Island days have faded, we build walls now and are jaded. Just stay home, you hot tamale man. That's the sound of all the Latino ragtime pianists coming to take all your gigs. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for spending some time with me. Sorry it took me a while to get this up. But I'll be back next week, I promise you. until next week, take care, friends. Bye-bye now.